In this video, I'm going to go over the updates I've included in the latest version of the Parametric Fretboard Maker. It is now in version 0.3. So when you run it, you'll notice immediately this is a little bit different, a little bit nicer looking. You can hit OK, and that will add it over here, just like before. And now you can dismiss the important notice. And this is persistent throughout the session of Fusion. So as long as you are still working in Fusion, you can open and close this. You don't have to worry about seeing this again. But once you close Fusion and reopen it, you will see this again. It's important to know that this is the beta, that with each version, there's a chance something might not work, something might break. So again, use kind of at your own risk. I'm doing my best to try to mitigate that doesn't happen, but there's no real guarantees while I'm still working through the early stages of the app. So we'll click we understand. And one of the first things I've done with the latest version is you can now choose the radii of the fretboard. You can have the default, which is the compound, so you have your nut and your heel radius. You can have straight, so they're equal. And then you can have flat, where there's no radius. And for this right now, this is kind of a hack. It really sets the radius to 10,000. So it looks flat. It's assumed to be flat, but it's not physically accurately flat. Shouldn't make any issue. When you go to machine or whatever, it's not going to, depending on the tool path you use, you can set it to know that it's flat and not a radius. And then I've gone through, and the different sections for your parameters you can now reorganize to your own preferences. You can drag those around, and these will persist through the session. So once you set these the way you like it, the app will retain that. So open those up. I've also, these for the most part are the same from last time. I've gone and I've added a share feature. And what this does is, I'll show you here in a minute, once you generate your model, this will give you a text string. And from that text string, you can easily copy and paste it to a friend or somebody that you want to say, this is all the parameters I'm using that I really like. And it's a real easy way to share that with somebody else. And then I've just moved the change log to the bottom. And also down here, I've also added a fretboard detection. So this is going to look, if you saw the last video where we have that special parameter built, this will look for that and tell you if there is a usable fretboard in your file. Obviously this one is a brand new file, it's blank. But if you were to use a different file, this just gives you detection if you're trying to like edit some parameters and you're like, well, this isn't doing what I want it to do. Just, this will give you a visual indicator. Oh, okay, this isn't the proper file, or somehow I broke it and it's no longer connected. So I've gone through, and we can do a quick load by default now. And what that's going to do is immediately pull in the default file without applying any changes. So it's a lot more expedient just to kind of get you in and going. If you were to go through and change one of these values, you'll see that this has a change applied, and this will show you that there's an amber ring. And what happens is that imports the file, and then it reapplies the new parameter, so that takes a little bit longer. So if we just hit quick load default, there we go, it's in. And then we can reopen our app, and we'll see here, now that's green, fretboard detected, great. So now that any changes we make to this will work with our fretboard. And also now you'll see that we have this little options button, and what this will do is this will open a drawer, a little sidebar if you will, and here you can see different things. And what this will do is this will control the toggling of the suppression state of different features. And these initial ones up here, these are singular, so either the group or the feature. And then down here are actually coded in to kind of chain together several suppression states. So here we can say, okay, well, let's not look at the fret slots. We can toggle those on and off. Be advised though, this is going to recalculate your timeline. So there will be a delay when you turn certain things back on. So this is good if you're going to try to make some bigger changes in the beginning. these individual cuts are they're going to take Fusion a little bit longer to chug through. So if you're going to do a lot more work and you don't really need to see those, you can go ahead and turn that off, and the entire process should work a little bit quicker, and then you can turn these back on when you're done. So we can do the fret slots, we can do the nut slot. Fret markers we can turn on and off, and then our heel curve, we can turn those fillets off. And again, those are just the individual features or groups down here. But then we have our chain together features. So if we do fret markers, we can say we want these to be offset. And what that's doing behind the scenes is that's taking the extrusion feature for, or excuse me, I believe I'm using a hole feature for these markers. And then that's actually just using the API to change between different selection sets. And then we can turn on 0 fret. And again, that's going to add an extra slot there, and it's going to make the extension a little bit longer down here. And then blind frets, that's going to take this, and our fret slots will physically go all the way through the edge of the fretboard. And then we have our heel curve, which we can turn on and off. And again, this is kind of doing the same thing as the radius, where it's just setting it to a huge radius where it's basically flat. It's not perfectly flat, but for the sake of what we're doing, it works fine enough. So we can close this, and to show you the different, actually let's turn the fret slots off. And we'll set this to single scale. And we can actually go ahead and turn the markers off. And then for the different radius style, we can type in radius. If I can spell it to see, here we have our nut radius, we have our heel radius. This forward one is 10 inches, this rear one is 16 inches. But if we go ahead and set this to straight, you'll notice that this becomes fretboard radius from nut radius, and heel radius goes away. So now this is a single parameter driving both the radii for the heel and the nut. And then if we set this to flat, they both go away. And if we hit apply changes, it is visually flat. Again, this is just an excessive value. So if we were to open up our actual parameters, you'll see that these are all just set to 10,000. And that's just kind of a little hack workaround to deal with this. If you really want it to be flat, you're more than welcome to go in there and add a couple features. And so we will set this back to compound. This saves the original values you had before you made that commitment. And we'll bring those back. And then one thing we can do now is we can go through and we can look at the individual parameters. And this is all pulling from the parameter sheet. Let's see if I can pull that up. Yeah. So it's all, again, this is just a glorified UI for your parameter sheet with a couple more bells and whistles. And then let's say we want to go up to general, and we can even add a new parameter down here, and we can say something like, I don't know, hole spacing. And we can say 1 inch. And let's say for the headstock. And we can add that. But if you don't want that in general, you can go back later and we can edit it. And then we can choose the category. I will go through in the next iteration, and I will add it to where you can easily add your own category. And now that's been moved out of general. And if we go down to headstock, we can see our hole spacing is there. I do intend to add scallops and the fall away frets into the upcoming releases. Scallops will probably be in the next one. Fall away fret might not be till a little bit later. But so these, just so you can see they're there. The parameters are in. Let's see. Let's see if we can open that up. There we go. So the parameters are actually still in the file, so they're just not activated through the app. But that's kind of where this is at for now. Again, I would love to hear any suggestions. If anybody has anything they think's not working, or if there's something they'd like to see in the future. I have had several people reach out to me saying, well, why don't you do the whole guitar? And again, that's just a lot to try to cram into a single app. I'm a big proponent of more of a modular approach to building a guitar in Fusion compared to some magical single file that can do everything at once. You're starting to get into like redundancy and unnecessary sketches and features that, while you can go through and toggle them off and suppress them, it's still going to bloat the file and you're not going to need it. So again, for now, I don't have the intention of taking this further than just the fretboard. I'm not against it, but just again, not on the radar. Also, I guess I forgot to mention that this now supports both imperial and metric. So if we close this and we set our document unit to metric, this will now actively read your document unit. So when you open it up, it'll be metric and it will give you all the parameters and values in millimeters instead. And this should work regardless of which metric unit you're using. If you were to be like, well, I want to build my guitar using meters, good for you. It'll still go back to metric, detect it, and give you the millimeters. And then if we go back to, if we want to build this in feet, it's going to do imperial and back to inches. So it's going to detect whether it's an imperial unit or a metric unit of measurement for length, and then it'll give you either inch or millimeter. So I think that's it for this update. Some just quality of life. So I hope whoever's deciding to use this, I hope they enjoy it. I hope it's giving them results that they like and they can work with. Here in the near future, I plan to go through and do kind of a in-depth breakdown of the actual architecture of how this is all put together. Because again, this is all manually built within Fusion, and then I just use this custom file to interact with the app. So again, if you would, just let me know what your thoughts are, and I'd love to hear your feedback. Thank you.